Welcome to our continuing series where we talk to professors, writers, reporters, columnists, activists, anybody on the left, anybody on the right, anybody who can think clearly, provide their perspective unfiltered, unedited directly to you so that you can make up your own mind. With us today, we were able to do a phone interview with Professor Dhavan Shah. Professor Shah is the Jack M. McLeod Professor of Communication Research and the Mayor Boscom Professor, Director of the MCRC at the University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Journalism and Mass Communication. We were able to speak to him for a few minutes over the phone today and get into the interview. Dr. Shah is a professor of communication research. He's the director of Mass Communication Research Center, and he's the scientific director in the Center for Health Enhancement Systems Studies, housed in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. He has developed three major lines of inquiry, with his most recent work extending insights and techniques from his prior examinations of the influence of message construction and online interactions on political life to the development and deployment of digital technologies for individual and community health. These programs of research center on the influence of message construction and processing of social evaluations, judgments, and behaviors, the capacity of mass and interpersonal communication, especially in online communities, to shape civic engagement, political participation, and social trust, and the effects of computer-mediated interactions, especially online support expression on the management of cancer, aging, and addiction. And this was the research paper that we found him, came out in 2013, Partisan Alignments and Political Polarization Online, a Computational Approach to Understanding the French and U.S. Presidential Elections. He is a professor who's excellent at looking at how people make decisions based upon digital data. And in 2013, he did a study of political polarization based upon online apps. With the advent of Twitter and the ability to collect large data sets from this technology, researchers have the opportunity to analyze political polarization in cross-national electoral contexts. This paper capitalizes on this ability to examine political polarization and citizen engagement during the U.S. and French presidential campaigns. We use the Twitter garden hose collection to filter tweets based upon keywords around a 50-day window from March 19th to May 8th. 2012 for the French election, and from September 19th, 2012 to November 8th, 2012 for the U.S. election. From these data, we constructed partisan alignments based upon hashtag usage and retweet networks. We found evidence of more stark political polarization in the French case, while the U.S. case demonstrates less partisan division. This study elaborates commonalities and contrasts in the use of major social media by citizens in contexts that differ in political, culture, and language, but feature similar ideological divides, electoral politics, and campaign contexts. So I asked him, you did a study in 2013. How bad was political polarization? Did it exist in 2013? And what his response was, what I would say is there are a lot of factors that contribute to our political discourse, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump have not helped. I do prefer calmer voices myself. I think our political polarization has existed long before Donald Trump. You see the people doing political sorting and not wanting to talk to people outside of their party, the idea of echo chambers and the idea of what social media has been doing, creating filter bubbles. This came before Donald Trump. So political polarization in 2013, while not as bad as France and America, was already there. The professor was adamant that political polarization did not start with Donald Trump and went back to 2004. He started documenting it in the paper in 2013. He says it existed before 2016. He documented it in 2013. And talking with him on the phone, he said it goes back to 2004. How bad was polarization in 2013, the year that you did the paper? The problem of us as a society and unable to communicate with each other has long been an issue before Trump. We are seeing a more polarized polity. Our leaders are more extreme. We have seen the right move further to the right and the left move further to the left, but not as much as the right move further to the right. I think if we could have done much better at 9/11, at 9/11, there was a moment where we could have had national unity and cohesion. It was a misspent moment. In the wake of 9/11 and everything that followed, the last 22 years have been slow erosions of our politics. So right after 9/11, we could have had a come together moment, but he's saying at 9/11, we did not have a come together moment, which is around 2001 to 2004, and that it was a lost opportunity to bring us together. It was a great opportunity, and we blew it. It did not bring us together. In the wake of 9/11, we have had certainly the Obama presidency added to polarization, probably along racial divisions, and Trump's rise is attributed to the antagonism with Obama. Factors related to polarization go back well before 2004. So polarization increased because Obama was not white and became president. Now, that's not something he did wrong. No one's blaming him. Of course, he should be able to run for president as an African-American man. But because it was not a white man in the presidency, that exacerbated polarization. Also, Trump's rise is because people were upset that Obama was president. If Obama hadn't been president, people may not have been that mad at racial issues and not willing to go after a dog whistling racist. So you had polarization increase because of Obama, and you could only have Trump because of Obama, pissed people off beforehand. Again, not intentionally, not with stuff he was trying to do, probably because people were racist. But when you look at things like that, he was saying when you look at that, it goes well back before Obama came out in 2008, and he was saying that's when he started noticing some polarization, then it increased with Trump, but he's saying it goes back to 2004. So I said, what about polarization being started in the 1990s under Newt Gingrich? Newt Gingrich had the Republican Party stop hanging out with the Democratic Party. Since the 1950s, legislators would hang out with each other after the workday. Newt Gingrich came in 92, 94, and killed that single-handedly, stopped legislators hanging out with each other. A lot of social science researchers have pointed to him as a starter of political polarization. Professor Shah doesn't exactly agree. I don't believe in the great man theory of history. I think it's a symptom of our larger inability to not communicate about our problems. I don't buy that it's one guy made everything bad. If you look at Bernie Sanders, Trump, AOC, all are very good at tapping into the fact that there are many people who are angry. Politicians are not the culprit as much as the symptom. I want to repeat this. Politicians are not the culprit as much as the symptom. Look at the rise of Fox and MSNBC and the breakdown of local news. Look at the news deserts in local areas. Look at the people who have to rely on Twitter and Facebook for information. There's a lot more contributing to this than individuals. So he doesn't buy that Newt Gingrich made it that way. He thinks it's a variety of factors like social media, polarized news, a lack of local news, and the fact that everybody has to do national news now. Politicians are very good at putting their fingers up and seeing which way the wind is blowing. Politicians are not the culprit as much as they are the symptom. And here's what he meant. The third theory is that it's reinforcing a vicious cycle. So I said, some people say politicians give cues which encourage the public to be racist. Other people say the public was already racist and politicians figured that out and figured out how to speak to that. And the professor said, I prefer a third theory, which is that both of those are true and they work together in a vicious. When you have politicians who sense that, they capitalize on it in a vicious circle. People have wants. Politicians figure out how to speak to that. When they do that, they can send cues to people. So the people are racist. Donald Trump figures that out, figures out how to speak to them. Then they start watching him. Now that they're watching him, he can do new cues that go back to the public. So cues come from the public. They go up to the politician. The politician figures out what those cues are, figures out how to speak to those cues, and then the politician at that point can start making cues which feed back into the people. So you have a vicious circle, is what he was saying. And he was saying, Trump's just won. Bernie Sanders, AOC are doing the same thing Trump is, speaking to the disadvantaged and the people who feel they've been left behind. And that's just the way it is now. Twitter and social media algorithms really do well for people who are polarizing and saying, hey, guys, we've been misled and we're victims. And so that's why you'll see a lot of activity for AOC, Bernie, and Trump on Twitter. He didn't see them as that different. And he didn't see it as reasonable to say individuals cause polarization. He thinks it's a collection of things in technology and communication that have changed over times, and they've created this situation. And Politicians aren't to blame. Politicians are a symptom of the time that we're in. They didn't make it this way. And they're just as much to blame, if we're going to do that, as the public themselves. We'll leave it there. You heard from the professor. Another piece of input for you to think about, and we'll see you soon.